Testing 1, 2, 3. Testing, testing, testing. Okay, that's not working. Testing 1, 2, 3. Nope. Testing 1, 2, 3. 9. Ooh. Not quite. Testing. Really? Nothing. Alright. I am going to have to give that one up. Oh well. Greetings, one and all. Turn off the monitoring in the background. Okay, there we go. Back to normal, and now testing it on the stream side. Yeah, not getting anything come through right now. Okay. Testing 1, 2, 3. Alright, we are good to go as far as I can tell. Greetings, one and all. Sorry for the weird introduction there. I was in the middle of testing something and it went... well, it stopped working on me, and so I wanted to see if I could bring it back, but apparently not. Anyway. Hope you're doing well. Well, we've had a couple of problems with trying to get streams going for the last few days, and lo and behold, now Fortnite doesn't want to work. So I'm going to try and troubleshoot that later on. We're going to be instead focusing on this right here, which is a font that we were working on a while back. Just a second, I just realized I still have that audio. And I realized I don't have the basic music running. Silverado? Why is Silverado muted? There we go. Oh, that's right. I haven't set it up for this scene in particular. Okay, well, that was interesting. Well, I'm continuing to fumble. But that is fine. I am not a professional, nor do I really pretend to be. All right. I'm going to be turning this into a font. Which reminds me, do I have that all good to go? Okay, yes. Towards the latter part of the stream today, we're going to be using FontForge in order to piece this font together. I've been stalling on trying to get this thing finished for a long time, and since Fortnite's not working today, I guess we might as well do this. By the way, this background was used for a recent video that was done with Dadman. We were over on his stream the other day, yesterday, getting a chance to talk about the Aleutians and the history around it, as well as the geography, and it kind of went all over the place. I went way too long, so it ended up being a 3-hour video. But it was enjoyable to do. Hopefully people found something valuable out of it. Okay, so I have a couple of directions that I was given on things to update. It was the M, the W, and the Y, which were not good. Okay. I will make those alterations. A couple of stories to tell you later on in the stream. As usual, we'll hold off on that until a little bit later. We'll see how many people show up for it, but today's discussion points are going to be around TikTok. I know people are probably not going to be, well, seems to be a lot of people in online spaces that do not like this subject right now. Understandably so. Especially when you defend something that the government does, which is what I'll be doing. But it needs to be done. It needs to be said. Why does it need to be said? Well, because I've noticed people for the last couple of days freaking out about it. And why does it matter what I have to say about it? Well, it doesn't. What does matter is that you be informed. Being informed about it in order to best give you some understanding as to why this is such an important subject and why it is such a hot topic for so many. As well as why it had to happen. Well, why it has to happen, because it hasn't happened yet, as I understand, but we're getting very, very close. And thankfully, people seem to be waking up and not as willing to just accept the nonsense that we have been given as a nation by the CCP. Why is that coming out so dark? Oh. Good, those are merging. Let's see here. I want the W to have some of the character traits of the previous one, but obviously he doesn't want that. So let's try doing this instead. We'll select this. Select that. Come down here. Yeah, okay, let's actually cut that. Create a new area. We're going to call this old. Paste that in there. Turn on the opacity. Lock it. Lock the lower area. Good to go. So what needs to go into this? Maybe I should take on more the angular sort of style. But with the over the last few days, some of the comments that I've seen as people have tried to offer their defense of TikTok is absolutely ludicrous to me. Why? Not because, well, in the end, because a lot of people are ignorant. And I'm not saying stupid, I'm saying ignorant. They don't understand what it is that they're defending. Kind of like a child who you could tell them the fire's hot, and they insist that it's not. And eventually, they're going to learn that the fire is indeed hot. But they will fight you all the way, saying about how you are just trying to keep a good thing from them. Why do I mention about that? It's because I was one of those kids. I actually saw something hot, and I thought that that's obviously not too hot. And movies had made me think that you could kind of deal with hot things and nothing would happen. I didn't realize that actual, like, hardcore pain would take place to you if you touch something very hot. And I lived with a small welt for a good while. Fortunately for me, it was small, but it still was enough to keep me from getting burned ever again. Sometimes you have to touch the fire, but a lot of the time you gotta be very careful, because sometimes touching the fire may end up being a death sentence, and then you'll never get a chance to correct. Greetings, Scutless. Heyo, before the faces were carved on it, the majority of Mount Rushmore was unprecedented. Clever. How are you doing, Scutless? We are trying to make a stream work today, because it has not been very efficient over the last few days, and I kind of had to wait until I could get this thing working again, and when I finally get it working, Fortnite decides to stop working on me. So we're doing this font now. That and starting the conversation about the nonsense around TikTok. Yesterday we were on, I went over to Dadman's stream, and we were telling stories about the Aleutian Islands. It ended up being a very long stream, 3 hours. I know, not super long compared to this sort of streams I'm used to, but it was longer for him and his audience, so I appreciate the people that were there, but I also realized I took up way too much of their time. And I was grateful that they had me, but I also realized, dang, I should have watched the time a little bit better. Oh well. It's gonna happen. That could be interesting. So hopefully the stream stays stable for today. I found out that apparently there was a driver update a week ago, and that could have been involved. It also could have been the fact that Restream was set up in a unique way. So we got, I reset everything back to its default for today, and then we'll slowly start bringing back one thing at a time, hopefully keeping things stable. So tomorrow we'll try using the same setup again, and then the day after that we will try and incorporate one of the updates. If it works, then wonderful. If not, well, then hopefully it won't cause too many issues. Hello and good night. I need to rest. Rest well, Bastion. May you have a wonderful evening, full of joy and slumber. Make sure if there's any sort of monster under your bed, be sure to beat it with a rubber mallet. So with the possibility of TikTok disappearing within a day, I got this question to ask. Is there a reason to keep TikTok? Is there any reason, logically or ethically or legally, that you should keep TikTok? Well, actually, I take that back. Not legally. Don't talk about legally, because CCP loves to work their way around all sorts of problems. What logically and ethically is a reason to keep TikTok? And then, what is a reason to get rid of it? I'll give that one a moment to sink in. But let me give you a little bit of backstory as to why I asked this question. Now, I never used TikTok. And I honestly didn't care anything about it, one way, shape, or form. I thought it was a bunch of nonsense to have to worry about, and I already had Facebook. Why would I need something else? Honestly, that was one of my big sticking points. So I ignored TikTok for many, many years. And what I found out was that most of the younger members of my friend circles were using it en masse. In fact, a lot of them were trying to become TikTok famous. Tended to be more the women than the men, but either way, there's still a focus to try and become TikTok famous. And so I never needed to be famous, and so thus I never bothered to try and go down that path. Now, it's actually one of the reasons why I never wanted to go into streaming, because I realized that puts your face out there, and I did not want that sort of interest. But then I realized that there was a need for that. Sometimes, some weeks the need seems to be higher than others. Some years it seems to be higher than others. And right now is probably one of those areas that's like in between. It's not a slump. It's not like super urgent. I could turn off the camera and things would probably be just fine for the most part. But there have been years where people have benefited from seeing a face on screen. But I don't need it to be there, because honestly that draws attention in a way that's probably not necessary, all things considered. But some people, they have to put themselves out there. And to not put themselves out there makes them feel almost like they are being devalued or overlooked, or they start to feel discouraged because, well, you can't see my face, and so thus, do I matter, sort of thing. Well, you always matter. You may not feel like it at times, and I've definitely been there myself, but you still matter. And whether or not you have people on the internet validating that, you don't need validation. But TikTok did something to people. It made them desperate to get recognized. Now, there's always been that desire. Honestly, Hollywood kind of made us crazy for attention. How many people have I heard say that, oh, if only I could have been an actor, an actress, then people would love me. People would want to be around me. Oh, people would want to see me all the time. Not necessarily a healthy way to go through life. If you're seen, you're seen. If you're not, well, no big deal. But for some people, that is a big deal. Now, we get our value, honestly, from our Heavenly Father. That's where our value comes from. We don't need mankind giving us praise. Don't need it, but it still happens, and when it does happen, you shouldn't necessarily shun it, but you definitely should not let it go to your head, because the moment it goes to your head, well, that's probably not going to turn out so well for you in the long run. So people on TikTok suddenly felt like they could become instantly famous. Oh boy. You can become TikTok famous, and overnight you become a celebrity. I've seen the footage of those people that I'm TikTok famous, and they go out and they make an absolute buffoon of themselves, as they act as if they're actresses or actors or politicians, or they act outside of their class. If you're TikTok famous, honestly, you have a very, 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 very short career, and it will be over in a moment. Kind of like the Haktua girl. She tried very desperately to break free of that. When she got her fame, not necessarily through TikTok, but just when she got her fame. But I saw the footage of her, and I never understood why people were so excited about her, but then I realized it was for depravity reasons. That was the reason why people wanted her to be around. Like, oh great, a woman who's talking about sexual stuff with confidence on camera. Yeah, let's follow her. Yeah, that's a bad idea. Well, what I noticed with people that became TikTok famous was that the moment that they start to lose their fame, they have a panic attack, and they cannot reason with it. How can I press on if I'm not famous? How can I press on if people aren't noticing me? If no one noticed that I didn't have my morning coffee and donuts, well, am I even really living? I met those people before. I worked with those people before. It's not a way to live. In fact, you're more of a robot than ever before. Interestingly enough, they're also some of the biggest advocates of AI. Surprise, surprise. So if you become famous, and then suddenly you wake up one day and you were planning out all your wonderful little gimmicky stuff for TikTok. Oh, I'm going to wake up and I'm going to start off with a morning yawn, and I'm going to go over to the sink and splash some water on my face and show that I'm getting ready for the day, and drink some coffee. You got to encourage people to go out there. I'm going to use my brand coffee mug. For me, it's just my Alaska state souvenir that you can get at every single Walmart. And they're like, look, I'm sponsored by this. Yeah, I can go through my day now. Ready to take on the day, everybody. And then what you don't see is that the moment that camera goes off, their motivation dies. And they can't press on. They slump. And they don't know what to do with themselves. And I saw them laying about like couch potatoes, scrolling through their feed, trying to find something to inspire them to go out and do something. Then the moment they find it, like, oh yeah, we should go out and film us putting on slippers at the nearest store, because slippers are in right now. Career, oh my goodness. But as they're scrolling this time around, rather than see new inspiring things for them to try and go out and imitate, so they can be creating stuff by imitating, they see a notification that pops up. The notification says, contact your congressman because TikTok's about to be banned. We need your support. You don't want to lose this very important, luxurious sort of lifestyle, do you? And people say, no, of course not. I don't want to lose that. How else am I going to be able to drink coffee out of my souvenir mug and look at slippers all day and be able to binge watch TikTok? So then they go out and they contact their congressman. They make videos showing about how they can't live without TikTok. It's their job. It's their industry. You wouldn't want to rob us of opportunity, would you? And then the congressman looks at that and says, dang, I didn't realize we were stirring up a hornet's nest. We best back off on this. There's obviously something we don't understand about all of this. And so they back off. And TikTok is saved. But then, a few weeks, months later, TikTok makes another statement and says, everyone panic. They have just investigated TikTok and they found it lacking in freedom of speech. Go out and harass everybody. Tell them about how terrible the U.S. government is for trying to ban TikTok. Don't they care about freedom of speech? And then everyone gets up in arms. Yeah, what about my freedom of speech? And they go out in the streets and they protest and they call their congressmen and they take selfies of themselves. And as they are going about it, they haven't once asked themselves the question, why? No, not why they're out doing that stuff, but why would the government almost unanimously turn against the app? It's not fair. They just don't understand. They're a bunch of oldies. They don't understand what us new people have understood. This is the new economy. I've heard that argument. But now, you have to start to ask yourself the question, why does it matter? I remember a time when we shot people who threatened our freedom. We didn't make videos about talking about the total mania tours of anti-freedom, the anti-freedom crowd was. So, the about the total meanie tours. There's some truth there. So the people that are now suddenly all upset about their TikTok being taken away, they've not stopped to ask why. And that's the sort of thing I've been seeing right now. A lot of people who are TikTok fans are starting to all repeat the same talking points. Freedom is in jeopardy. If one app goes down, they will all go down. That's the argument. Now, from an American point of view, that makes total sense. I mean, we've seen Parler be taken down. I remember when Gab was supposed to be up and coming, and it petered out. I mean, it's still there, but it almost met the same fate as Parler. So, if why would the government want to ban it? To the TikTok consumer, they only see that there are a bunch of old folks that see that they're having fun and they want them to be slave labor. Oh yeah, we got to get them off their phones and get them into the labor force. I've heard that one too. See, I can understand those arguments. Your freedoms are in jeopardy. If they can come after one app, they can come after them all. But now, why would they do it? Why would they risk losing the freedom of speech? I mean, the Supreme Court even weighed in on it. So why? Well, I asked some TikTok users, a couple of them, why, and they couldn't answer. They all said the same thing. Freedom of speech. Our government's a bunch of tyrants. They all of them want to take away our freedom. And I said, do you know why they banned TikTok? No. I mean, we said tyranny. No, that's not it. See, TikTok is Chinese owned, Chinese operated. There was a lot of suspicion that they were, but within the last 2 years, it's become inevitable. It's become inexcusable. It is absolutely controlled. Oh, but they're just taking data. I mean, our companies do the same thing. I mean, Facebook, it sold our user data. Oh, it's so terrible. You know what you can do with Facebook? You can sue them. You can actually file a case. Do you know China will not allow you to sue them? You cannot hunt them down and say, hey, you're violating a rule. You have no representation. That's the first thing. But here's the other thing. When it comes to freedom, you have the freedom to keep and bear arms, right? For me, I have the ability to have this very deadly antler. It's my weapon, and also a great back scratcher. This right here has been seen throughout millennia as a form of a weapon. But here's the thing. You can keep something that is You can keep and bear arms. Do you have the right to use it? I mean, you go out target practicing, you're going to shoot a couple of wildlife, you're going to take it down with your antler. I mean, makes sense, right? Can you take down other people? There is a restriction to our freedom. Every freedom has a restriction. I do not have the ability to go out and just start using this thing as I see fit. This antler must remain a back scratcher, as well as a bug killer. Although it's kind of hard to pinpoint it, make a hole in the wall. But I'm not allowed to use it in a because that violates someone else's freedom. Their freedom must not be extinguished at the expense of yours. Why does that matter for TikTok? Because TikTok has violated many freedoms. It's not the freedom of speech that they're violating, although that is a huge part of it. If you want to say anything about Xi Jinping or whatnot, they will not allow it. So yes, freedom of speech is throttled on there. It's actually more than most platforms. They found out recently that they used TikTok to hunt protesters in Hong Kong. There was a moment back when Hong Kong was still free. It was still considered a Western city, and China cracked down on them. And the world watched, and they said, "Well, at least they protested." You know, most of those people are gone, and a lot of them, as I understand from the report, they were hunted using TikTok. One freedom of speech extinguished a freedom of life to live and pursue happiness. A right to speak and make their voice heard. A right to try and save their nation. They were not allowed. But that's Hong Kong. Yeah. It was an in-between area. It was an area that China did not have authority over, and they cracked down. And they used an app that they all had access to help them round them up. You know, they are hunting people across the world. There are police stations across the world. Now, we finally understood as a nation about the threat, and we've been cracking down on them, but they are still around. I think I found one a couple of years ago. And they would go out and they would try and enforce Chinese rules here in the US or in Canada or in Australia. Some of their people disappearing because they were going to exact a form of justice according to Chinese law in another nation. So for TikTok to make the argument of the freedom of speech requires them to have people ignorant of all the other freedoms they violate. When our government banned it and said you have to be sold, it wasn't just because of user data. It wasn't just because of because they want to try and have a trade war. It's because it's a violation of many freedoms, not just the First Amendment. And if you have that, well, what's the other freedoms they're going to start taking away? That's why I find the biggest supporters of TikTok and trying to demonize the US. It's like, people do not know there are people dying as a result of this app. That Tide Pod challenge, do you realize stuff like that is being promoted only in Western countries because they want the West to poison itself, to become insane? That's a weapon. That's not an app. That's not social media. That is a weapon. And it's being wielded against us with no restriction. People have died because of that app. And whenever I hear people make the argument, I have to wonder, do they understand? Because I don't think they do. Because if you understood that one aspect, that it's designed to eliminate your other freedoms by being protected by the first, there's a reason why our government had to go after it. And that's why it is unanimous among so many political parties. Because enough people have been begging for it. I don't expect everyone to understand. Really, I know there are some people they're, especially people that are like influencers with it. They're so set in their way with it. They're like, we cannot imagine life without it. There are other apps out there. You don't need TikTok. So, if they are desperate to have that same lifestyle, go to YouTube. Go to X. Go to Instagram. But what they wanted was they wanted the protection that TikTok gave them and the inspiration that it gave them. You can make that again somewhere else. You don't need TikTok, especially when you take into account the violations that it did against human rights. And yes, I do believe that's going to come out sometime about the human rights thing. Right now, nobody's talking about that. But people who have been studying China for a long time and studying this whole matter know that this is going to eventually come out. The question is, how strong is that connection? We don't know. But it's enough that it freaked out our government and made a unanimous decision with them. And I fully expect once Trump understands, I think he's going to back it. Because right now he is trying to give TikTok another chance, but that's because he benefited from it. Now I like Trump. Honestly, I do. But when it comes to AI and it comes to TikTok, he has a blind spot. He does not know tech. Golly, I don't even think he knows how to use his phone most of the time. He doesn't know how to use a computer. He's never coded before. He barely understands the fact that technology has this ability to control and manipulate people en masse. Now, he understands a little bit of it. I think that when he gets briefed next week, I think he's going to say, yeah, folks, I hate to have to do this, but you're going to have to let it go. Let it go. Trump with the caps lock button is the textbook definition of abusive relationship. I know many people that don't know how to use technology effectively, and I dare say the more once the newer generation starts to have authority, which it will very soon, it's already starting, there's going to be a lot of people that are going to say, yeah, we understand something that the older generation didn't. It's like the people who understood rocket technology trying to talk to somebody who grew up in a wagon, which, by the way, actually did happen. People that were at NASA, their rockets were being launched when people who had actually been on in covered wagons on the prairie. Oh, look at that. How wonderful. Best viewers available. Nah, get out of here, bot. Banned. Nonsense. Now, why am I so passionate about it? Well, because when I was younger, I had Chinese roommates, and I cherish the Chinese people. They are some of the nicest, most wonderful people. But China's big, and not everybody adheres to the values of the ones that I met. Of the people that I met a couple who were actual CCP plants. And I saw them trying to go about ways to control and manipulate. And you know what? I had friends that I tried to keep in contact with. And about 2-3 years later, after having such great relationships with these people, I had to cut off all ties to them. I couldn't talk to them. The reason why is because I found out that there were people that had American friends who would then be investigated because they had an American friend. And I had to wonder, if my efforts to try and reach out to them because I wanted to keep a relationship going, if it was putting them in danger. And eventually one day I saw a post on a Chinese whistleblower site where somebody actually mentioned that a person had been targeted and disappeared because they knew an American. And I realized I need to pull back when I saw that. I still think about them. But then I found out that technology gave them the ability to monitor to such a degree that their lives could be in jeopardy as a result. And so I removed anything that could potentially have tracking for the CCP. Now, unfortunately, we have a lot of people here in this country who have been willing participants in selling our data. I think those people should be investigated. I think Facebook should be investigated. I think Twitter, X, should be investigated. I think they all need to be put under the microscope. Because there are a lot of people whose lives have been upended because of data breaches. And there's a lot of ways to be able to protect, and they are not following some basic rules of how to protect user data. Why? Because they make their money off of it. If I could buy an account, a secure account on a platform that is protected from bots, that's protected from advertisers, I will willingly do that. Because at this point, if your data gets leaked, you could lose hundreds or thousands of dollars. You could even be out everything, which has happened to very few people, but it does happen. So if you have that sort of stuff transpiring, and yet you don't have these companies paying their fair share when something goes wrong, you're just encouraging it to keep going. And because of that, all these companies need to be investigated. Because they have been a leaky faucet. They have been, rather than being an airtight seal, they've been a sieve. Everything has been going through, but the biggest of things. And so they're like, look, we caught hackers. While they let in 1,000 others. By doing that, they have pretended that somehow they are protecting us. Somehow they're being honorable. And they're not being honorable. So, I am for a TikTok ban. I'm also for an investigation into all these companies that claim to be protecting the data of Americans. Because there are people in this world who are that begin a world of trafficking through one of these apps. And these apps are guilty. I do believe that wholeheartedly. Especially when you talk to people who are actually in the efforts to save people from such industries. And you know what is interesting? One of the most common ways for people to get targeted is Instagram and TikTok. TikTok gives them a live feed of wherever somebody is. But the CCP protects that one because they want to have control over that. Instagram should be, Meta should be investigated for their role, because I do think they are willing participants. And I think Mark Zuckerberg knows this. I can't imagine that he wouldn't be aware, but he's been playing dumb. I do think he will be investigated one day and be found as highly negligent, if not a willing participant. Golly, just look at how Facebook came to be, and you find out very quickly that this guy has no morals and ethics, that he will not compromise if he thinks he can make a profit. I've seen so much in the last 2-3 weeks about TikTok, and I am so over it. I'm so over that app. I'm so glad it is over. Now, that's assuming something doesn't happen very soon. But I think it is gone. And the one thing I wish is that we had not waited. I wish we would have raided the servers and demanded to see it. Because I think we would be surprised what sort of information we would find on there. I think it would shell shock us. Now, I saw a feed that was put out there of what people's information was known to be coming off of TikTok. And it is staggering, all the information they know. But at the same time, I think a lot of tech companies are panicked because they know that if TikTok gets banned and gets investigated for this stuff, that they're next. Amazon, I think, is on that list. Meta is on that list. I believe Apple's on that list, and so is Windows. And if they all get investigated, I will be happy, because I think it is high time that the lights be turned on and we stop this madness of trying to control a population through technology. Tyranny wants to control. If you want real freedom, leave the apps. Honestly. Now, I'm on there. Not on TikTok, but I'm on social media apps. I would gladly delete them tomorrow. But you know why I don't? Because right now, there are still many people on there that don't know how to leave. And I've met them. And I know that for some of them, they won't listen to everybody. They will keep trying to get people to come back to it. And I want to be there to kind of help be a voice of reason. But I would like for people to leave it. Personally, I don't think it has helped our society at all. Has it made it so that people can know information better? Yeah. It's also made things far more confusing than ever before. And I do think confusion is a big, big problem. I've heard people spend more time citing conspiracy theories than truth. And if you are more willing to believe that there are lizard men ruling over you than the fact that the CCP is trying to galvanize a population so that it will make the conquering of the US easier, maybe it's time to leave the conspiracy theories on the shelf for another day. Because China does believe that it is at war with us. It tells its people that. There is documents out there where they talk constantly about we are going to fight the Americans. And we've been blissfully ignorant of the realization that they are preparing for just that moment. So if they would fight so much for TikTok to stay active, you gotta wonder why. And if you understand that the real problem, the real threat is the CCP trying to use it as a form of destruction for the West, it suddenly makes a lot of sense why they're so desperate to cling on to it, to refuse to let it go, to refuse to let it be sold, where we can actually look at the source code and realize it's pushing stuff that kids are going, with the intent of trying to get kids to jump off a cliff. Yes, there is stuff like that people have been theorizing that the algorithm has been pushing because of the kind of order of some of that stuff happening. I heard one person, they were looking at the app and they were depressed, and it was actually telling them to just end it all. It was intentionally trying to get them to quit on life. For that alone, the app should be banned. Something that takes away hope should not be permitted. Because there's always because there is a way to help people like that. Making a fort. Greetings, Jess. Yeah, unfortunately, Fortnite doesn't want to work right now, so I'm going to have to double check what's going on, and we'll see. And also because I didn't know if the stream was going to work. Anyway, greetings, Jess. Hope you are doing well. I still got the airplane up from yesterday, and I had a lot of fun on that stream over with Dadman. I know I went long, but it was enjoyable. I gotta remember to hold my tongue more when I'm on a guest on another stream. Honestly, it's something I know I need to work on that. I guess people are going to Red Note, and it's all in Chinese, and figuring out the algorithm and figuring out the FYP algorithm really fast. Oh my goodness, I am shocked that people are so willing to go to something where it literally says that it's going to be for the CCP, and that it is going to require them to adhere to CCP values. It's sad, honestly. Yeah, it's troubling. I do believe Red Node will be banned too. Once our government finally realizes what's going on. Which is kind of weird that people chose that one of all the apps. It's like they're trying to do an insult to the to our leaders and say, "Oh, well, you don't know what's best for us. We're going to go to an app that is about a country that literally wants to end us." You both tend to ramble and tangent. There's a reason Dadman usually just does his squirrel streams. FYP is for your page. I've not used TikTok, but watched TikTok reacts. Ah, I see. I'm glad that I know very few people nowadays that actually use TikTok en masse. But I do know a couple people that are really, really addicted to it. I am so, so glad that we are finally getting rid of this thing. It's been years of people trying to get our government to wake up and say, hey, this thing is a weapon. It is being used to harm people. And they're like, no, we want the market to make the decision on this. Yes, but we have something that it is being a weapon of another nation. We need to wake up. And finally, they've looked at the information and they're like, holy smokes, we had no idea it was this bad. From what I've seen, people are doing Red Note as a middle finger to the government. It's so ridiculous. All that for some entertainment. Well, I think it's more for because of the type of entertainment that it has, but all that for social media. You know, we didn't allow for World War II propaganda to be broadcasted across the U.S. Because in a war, it becomes a weapon, and it hurts people badly. Our government realized that because China has been wanting very, very much over the years. It is desperately trying to spark a conflict, and we've narrowly missed it multiple times. But it is very important to remember to be wise right now, because CCP is preparing. It is preparing for a conflict. Even though we don't want it, it is preparing for one. It keeps telling its people to prepare. There are literally efforts to teach kids how to be soldiers in kindergarten. Now, they're not very good, but they're trying to psych people out, trying to get them influenced to do those sorts of things. You can't overlook it any longer. The one I watched does reacts, doesn't even have TikTok because of the time. Because of the time suck of it. One of his editors made the compilation for him. Now, TikTok compilations are hilarious because you realize just how out of control people can be on there. But it's also just sad. It's like there's a life outside of these apps. And if you're so desperate for an app, there's so many other ones. You can do the same thing. Most of the time they're mirroring it anyway. They're so desperate to hold on to that one. I look forward to look forward to next week when they get rid of it entirely. Tomorrow, that is. I've seen footage of Chinese children from a very young age being taught to unconditionally hate Japan. Yes, and you know what? You're right. You're absolutely right. And recently, they've caught kids being taught the same thing about America. anything American, they're being taught to hate America with that same unconditional hate. If you see, these people will go out and beat up someone just because they think they're from Japan. They hear that there's a Japanese product. They'll go out and they'll find every last one of them and destroy it. That's how insane they are in their hatred. And now they're trying to do the same thing with the U.S., which it's slowly taken off. But in about 20 years, it is going to be at a fever pitch, which makes us wonder what's going to happen in 20 years when these people get old enough and their brainwashing starts to become apparent. Kind of dangerous stuff, honestly. Very dangerous. That's going to be part of the conflict that the younger generation is going to have to deal with. Dadman once, during doing a where in the U.S., and took half an hour after giving the options and title to get to the answer in an article because of tangents. I think they call it doom scrolling. Oh yes, the time suck of it from where you just keep scrolling. You can do the same thing with Instagram and other ones as well. But yeah, it is, honestly, it's a very bad thing for your health and your mental resolve, your ability to think critically. But it's important to realize that just because somebody tells you you can't do something, it doesn't mean that they're wrong for wanting to tell you you can't do something. Many times, because like right now, all these people are like, oh, how dare the government try and take away our TikTok. We're going to go to Red Note. They're so desperate to keep on holding on to it, they don't realize the damage that's done. And they're like, you know what? If you cannot, for the life of you, show some self-restraint and some wisdom and realize this thing's harming you, maybe someone else has come and make the decision for you. I know many people right now that are trying to defend it, and they are going to wake up one day when our government comes out with the full report. And it's like, folks, this is what's been happening, and we're going to freak out because people are going to finally understand. But the TikTok addicts are going to pretend like somehow it's not true. The government's lying to us. China wouldn't try and do these terrible things to us. That's part of the brainwashing process, folks. China wants you to hate America so much. And I'm not saying ignore the problems. I'm saying if you're going to have problems with the U.S., have the same level of problems with China. You don't like the fact that we're trying to stop freedom of speech by getting rid of TikTok? You do realize China is the soul of censorship. You go over there, you can't say anything. You go on to social media and you say something you might or might not actually have your words even seen by somebody, because the AI will change the text on you. Or worse, you'll be arrested and disappeared. TikTok's extra bad for it because of the algorithm and the total brain rot of what's on there. Absolutely. That's why people viewed it as a weapon. During Fortnite earlier, playing with Dadman and the missus, she got to be Godzilla. I saw that there was that update. Maybe that, and that is partially the reason why I was unable to do it tonight, because I had to wait for things to update, but now I have to double check everything. Anyway. But we should be good to do that tomorrow night. Speaking of Godzilla, and Mecha Godzilla skin is a thing. The Mecha Godzilla skin is a thing. Would have wanted something closer to Kiru Mecha Godzilla 3. Well, you should protest it. Take it to TikTok and... Oh, wait, you can't... You should, yeah, you should submit some concepts art of what that should be. Make it a reality. Yeah, Mecha Godzilla and Kong skins are in the shop. I've wondered what the big draw was of Godzilla. I never quite caught the interest in that, but I understand a lot of people are big fans of it. Never had a TikTok account. I was only on the website once when I clicked a link, assuming it was to YouTube, and I was actually, when it was actually to TikTok. Same thing. I actually clicked a link and it took me to TikTok, and I was like, wait a minute, what is this thing? I almost downloaded the app, but I was in the process of learning about China, and I heard about the name TikTok, and the people are already saying, hey, be careful of this thing. And I was like, I'm going to back up. I don't trust this thing, and I don't trust new technology unless there's like a very good reason to invest into it. Kind of like Rumble. I was a very late adopter to Rumble when it had been around for months and years. Still a bit unable to really lean heavily into it. The only one I actually jumped on the bandwagon was Twitter, but after like 2 days, I closed it down and never opened it again, only to find out my name had been taken by someone else. And so when I got back on it, I had to try and find a new name, and that's when Alaska Jeff came about. I'm never using the glider for Godzilla in the Battle Pass. It's Mothra. Yuck. Wait a minute. Jess, you're going to complain about Mothra being a glider when you're running around the map with that hideous, awful, disgusting melting pie that looks like it is food out of hell. You think that one's fine by comparison to Mothra? Oh no. I'll take Mothra over the over that horrifying pie or the brain thing that Bastion has or whatnot. I recently went back to Twitter last November or December. I found since deleting my last account in 2021, someone took my handle. So my new handle is Skutless48 instead of just Skutless. X has been an interesting experience. I have some big issues with Elon Musk personally, but I am glad with some of the things he has done for the app. But I still see all sorts of problems with it. Oh, hey. I have to take a look at this later on. Okay. Just found an interesting update here. All right. There we go. I'm not very good when it comes to designing fonts. I'm very, very green at this sort of stuff. I don't see the front on that, and I don't use it much anyways, but I don't want to stare at the giant moth. Oh, poor moth. I have no idea who is this person or who took my previous handle. It's a protected account. The avatar seems to be someone's butterfly tattoo. You know, I had an account that I was trying to get back, and because it wasn't just the first one I got, it was actually the first Alaska Jeff one that I was trying to get, and I realized it's by a muted it's by an account that it has not been active since like 2011 or something like that, whenever that happened. And I'm like, hey, can I get this handle? And they're like, oh no, you can't get the handle anymore. So I went with Alaska Man Jeff rather than Alaska Jeff as a result. But I already did the branding for the Alaska Jeff stuff in the background, kind of like what you see right here, Alaska Jeff rather than Alaska Man, because I didn't realize I was going to encounter that problem. Do you know what it takes to be a leader? What does it take to say, you know what? I need to do something because people need my direction. I need to say this because people need direction. A lot of people want to be leaders. And I mean a whole lot of people want to be leaders. Kind of like how a lot of people want to be influencers or models or things like that. We all have a desire to be a leader, but when we start to realize what it takes for leadership, we start to pull back. You're like, I wanted to be a leader, but then I realized the weight of the decisions. Oh, really? There's weight with the decisions? Oh, tell me, how did you find that out? And then you find out that the person who experienced leadership suddenly realized not everybody thought the way that they did. And the moment they made a decision, all the haters came out. How dare you do that? And then suddenly they had to hold their own against a crowd, and they suddenly didn't want to be leaders anymore. That is usually the point when a lot of people will abandon the desire for leadership. A corrupt person says, yeah, of course I'm going to tell you whatever I want. You're going to do whatever I want. That's because I'm the leader. That's corruption. But to tell somebody to do something is not inherently bad, especially if it is your role as a leader to protect somebody. Our government has a mandate to protect its citizens. If they violate that mandate, that is a very bad thing. And it is grounds for a series of events that will probably not turn out well. We fought a war over taxation when our country got founded. But there was also some elements of an abandonment of leadership by the British. It wasn't just taxes, although it sounds really good for modern day, but it was other things as well. Our government had to ban TikTok. As leaders, it was their responsibility when people were making the mistake of going willingly to the CCP to give over everything. And they're like, you know what, I just want to be on TikTok. Sure, do I have to compromise a lot of stuff? Yeah, but you know what, you got to do it. I mean, there's no other way around it. And people willingly gave everything to the CCP. And now that they have given it, they get all upset when somebody comes along and says, no, you're wrong, you messed up, suck it up, cupcake, we're leaving. How dare you take this away? Oh, my freedoms. If you don't know how to protect your own freedom, somebody has to come in and tell you. All the warnings were there. People were told for years how dangerous TikTok was. You were given full ability to leave, and so many people chose not to because they didn't understand. They're not leaders. They don't know how to make decisions for themselves, let alone for somebody else. A leader has to say, you know what? I know people are going to hate me for this, but it has to be done. This thing is dangerous. We've seen the damage. We can't overlook it anymore. Now, I wish our government would do that a bit more. Not the necessarily banning of an app, but looking out for our well-being, whether it's forest fires or storms, or because the government's role is to protect first and foremost. It's not to give you handouts. It's not to try and coddle you. Its main purpose is to protect and defend. If they fail that, they have failed us all, and nobody will be happy. You have to be willing to accept somebody else's leadership if you are not able to be a leader or wise enough to be a leader, and you'll learn that the hard way based upon how the actions of your own how your own actions turn out. Greetings, Pierre Jason. Oi! Okay, gotta go. Have a blessed Sunday. Sunday? Well, Pierre Jason is indeed tired. My friend, is a Saturday. You know, that is actually unless Pierre Jason is actually in Kamchatka. Oh, amazing! Pierre Jason's actually somewhere to the west of me. He's traveling. Tired, I gotta go. Again, sleep is a lie. Sleep is a lie for the person who said have a blessed Sunday. But again, that's unless he's actually in Kamchatka, because then wouldn't that be quite the surprise for everybody? He's actually traveling and has crossed the international date line, and so where he is, it is actually 12:04 on Sunday. Okay, I think I've done enough warm-ups of these. There's a reason why I didn't do this one initially, because I actually kind of liked it. I'll stick with this one. And then for the M, using the things that have been used so far. That came off the old paste. Kamchatka, I wish. Had some great comebacks in Riska from Kamchatka. Oh, yes, indeed. A very good place to try and hold. I have no idea what day it is. Well, be sure to tell us once you find out what day it is, because I'm sure it will be fascinating to find out. Let's grab this and bring it on up. And remember, BR Jason, wherever you are, make sure not to use TikTok. Have a blessed Sunday, and I have a mediocre Saturday. And have a mediocre Saturday. Indeed. Now, there we go. We're being given a 2 days to look forward to, Saturday and Sunday. Have a wonderful evening and rest if you end up having it, and we will see you next time, whatever that is. TikTok is one of those things where what I was saying about leadership earlier, You have to be able to say enough. And you have to accept that there are people that are going, like children, are going to kick and scream. Don't take it away. How dare you? Oh, you're so mean. Parents have dealt with that a lot. Not that I have any experience, but I have definitely seen parents who have had to put down their foot. And you know what's interesting? The parents that don't put down their foot usually end up getting run over by their kids. And if people are going to act like kids about TikTok, then they don't get to make that decision. They are not mature enough to make that decision. They are not mature enough to understand the difference between a freedom and an abuse of that freedom. If you don't understand those things, you don't get to make the decision. People had years to make that decision, and they chose not to. Because they're children, and they don't understand authority. They don't understand the authority that they have to do what's right. Kind of getting an inspiration off the cave for this one, which is why we're doing a slight variation of this. And honestly, I do like how the U and the N turned out, but the client did not. So we are going to change that because the client gets the final say. And by the way, this is actually a very good important tip for people that are freelancers. Okay, so if you're interested in freelancing, doing artwork, listen up. Okay, this is very, very important. The client will make decisions you do not agree with. The client has that benefit to change the direction of something. It is not your position to argue about how terrible the client is for making a different choice. It is your position as a creator to find out how to make the best, most beautiful, elegant, well-designed elements that you can with the restrictions you are given. You have all the freedom to refine something within reason. There. That is something that I wish more people would talk about, because I know many people who do not understand or care about something like that. Oh, this client, they don't know anything. The client's so bad at understanding true art. Yeah, sure, that may be the case. I have some differences with Arudai with some of the stuff he has made decisions for. But you know what? It's his product. He gets the final say. There are things I did for some of the past intros that I wish he had gone a different direction. Very much wish he had gone a different direction. It could have been so cool if it had gone another direction. But you know what is fascinating? When you surrender the fact that you're not going to get to be the final say in something, you many times come up with an idea that you're like, I never would have thought of this if I had not been restricted. And suddenly, what was seen as a negative of how frustrating it is to be restricted in your ideas, suddenly you find out, dang, I actually kind of like how this thing turned out. I have no complaints. But he had plenty of complaints early on, because in the end, we all want to kind of feel like we have final say over something. I guarantee you, some people that work, well, if I was to make a product tomorrow and I was to hire a bunch of people to help me out, I would have a lot of people happy about it. Until they start making the designs, and then they start seeing that I have a desire to change it. And then suddenly they would go from being happy to being very, very, very upset. Not because because not everybody understands what it takes to make a good product. Now, I don't necessarily claim to be an expert, but I know how some of the material that what I have created, how it needs to play out. And if it doesn't play out in a certain way, it will cause problems later on. And I've thought about some of this stuff very thoroughly, including some stories that I'm like, when I get the chance to try it, it will be a one shot. If it fumbles, I'll probably never get another shot. So I'm going to be very, very careful with the very first product. I'm going to make sure it is as refined as possible because I do not want to miss the opportunity. As such, people that work with me on those projects, they're probably not going to like me all that much. Not because I'm going to be a tyrant, but because I will have a standard. And people may say, hey, well, I like the idea that this person's a super jacked, super powerful looking character. I'm going to say, no, I want him to be a bit leaner. I want him to be a bit more humble looking. And they're going to say, no, you don't understand. We could make this epic. I'm like, yeah, it is going to be epic. With humility. And it's going to drive some creators batty when they have to work with me on that. If they ever work with me on it. As such, I expect that a lot of people will say, you know, I don't really want to work on these projects anymore. Okay, that happens. But it's going to happen no matter who you work for, whoever you work for. Some people are going to give you ideas that you're going to say, well, I can make them see. Yeah, I thought I could make people see too. And I made several products, and people didn't like them. Oh, sure, the audience loved it, but the creator didn't. The person who was organizing it didn't like it, and thus the opportunity ended, and didn't get to see or try it again. Whereas when I do kind of hold my tongue, hold my nose to it because I'm not happy with it, many times I find out that I actually enjoy it. And things that I was not excited about, I suddenly like, you know what? I actually am looking forward to doing this project now. You have to learn to work within the lines. A lot of artists want to draw outside the lines. You know what? I don't want to have to draw a letter within the lines. You know what? I want this to be a unique letter. Let's make that is super unique. Okay, we're going to be artistic, okay? This is going to be great. And so then you design it, and then you look at it as a whole, and you're like, but I made an interesting design. It was brand new. It was edgy, but it doesn't fit. That's what a director has to do. A director has to bring all those elements that do not look like they're going to fit and refine them to the point of where they all do. And so if you are part of that system, you have to agree to draw within the lines. You have to agree to say, you know what, maybe I'm not happy with how this design's going. Maybe I wish it was a different design. But it's going to work out eventually, and I may find a design that I really like that I would not have come to otherwise. By the way, tomorrow we're gonna have there's gonna be 2 streams I'm part of. One is gonna be for Fortnite tomorrow night that we're gonna be doing. But there's also going to be one where I'm going to be over on Daramuth's channel over on Rumble. Now, Daramuth is a nice fella. Somebody who I wish would have different views on AI, but you know, people are going to make their decisions. We're going to be over there. I have no idea what the content's supposed to be. I was asked to be over there, and so I'm going to give it a try. I'm not over there super often. I've only been over there once so far. I don't realize something this week. I realized I don't insist on being on streams. I mean, I'm on my own, but I don't insist on being on another person's stream. I don't even advertise my streams. I mean, you all know that. If you've been a regular around here, you know I've not been advertising my streams. I don't try to reach new numbers, and honestly, we're still around the 300 marker for Twitch, and it's been a year. Rumble is still at about 100, 150, of which I don't know how many people are actually active because it is such a small community. YouTube barely grows at all. But you know what? I don't need it to. And that's what I kind of realized earlier today. Earlier this week. I realized there are some people, they're desperate to be noticed. Kind of like the thing about TikTok that we mentioned earlier. They're desperate to be noticed and recognized, to be valued, and to have someone say, you know what, we want you to show off our product. We are desperate to have your opinion on things. People want to be noticed. But here's the thing. if you get noticed and you make a wrong decision, have a wrong take, are you going to be happy about that? Or are you going to say to yourself, well, sure, was it a bit embarrassing, but yeah, hey, you know, anything for the views. Well, people that go around insisting to be on other people's streams constantly, and I do mean not like insisting like every now and again, but like, let's say for example, I was doing a stream and someone came along and every single time they saw me online says, hey, can I jump into the voice chat? Hey, can I jump into voice chat? You guys know I sometimes jump into voice chat during streams like this, where it's like, hey, it's open. If you want to jump in, you can jump in. Fortnite, it's always open. I don't section myself off. But if somebody were to come along and keep insisting, can I do it? Can I do it? Can I do it? After a while, you just get a little annoyed at that. And you're like, what are you doing? Well, a lot of people, it's a desire to be noticed. It's a desire to be famous. Not really sure about how being famous on a streaming platform like this can be. It's kind of weird to me. But there are some people, they're desperate. They are absolutely desperate for that. But I don't insist on being on other people's streams for that reason. Because I know it's not my place. This is my little corner. I get to speak, I get to draw, I get to play games. I feel like I'm able to do or say things and not have to walk on eggshells. But if I was in another place, insisting to be there, I want to play by their rules. Because I'm a guest. I'm not there to try and usurp or take over. I mention this because I'm getting very, very close to changing a rule on the Discord. I've noticed I created an area for people to promote activities, to promote streams, and it's being abused. And I am getting very close to saying, okay, we're going to limit things. And I think I have an idea on how to limit it. Because I want it to still be there. I don't want to cut people off. But I don't want it to become someone trying to seek glamour in a community that is, I think, well, I try and make sure we prize ourselves in that sense. I know it's mostly me, but I want to prize that the community is about civility. And part of that is humility. You can promote something, but do so respectfully. Don't harass, don't put it out there so much that you're like, because all that shows is desperation. Now, I'm a part of the guy's community elsewhere, and I don't do it to him, but he does it over here. I want to make sure that people have that ability without it being overbearing. That's one of the reasons why with Daramuth, I have not insisted on being on his streams. Now, I'm always there. I'm not going to turn him down if he wants me there. But I'm not going to go along and say, hey, can I be on your stream? Please let me be on your stream. Same thing with Dadman. It's been a year since I was on his stream. I'm not going to be going around and saying, please let me be on there. I don't need it. Because I know it's not healthy to be so desperate that you're going to insist on that constantly. You're just pushing yourself to disappointment, honestly. What did you think of what I put in food? Oh, let me take a look at that. Oh, ugh. Oh, no. Well, we got peeps here. These are my peeps Peeps. No. Cookie and cream Peeps. Look, to the Peeps company, stop making Peeps. How many people like Peeps, honestly? There can't be that many. Am I crazy for thinking that? It cannot be more than I don't know. I've only seen people buy it once and actually enjoy Peeps. Everyone else is like, oh, we're dutifully buying it. We don't actually need it. We don't really want it. We're just doing it because, we kind of have to. Oh my goodness. Yeah, not a fan of Peeps. Bizarre, weird, pointless flavor. The flavors on the website. How many flavors do they have in total, Jess? I'm guessing it's probably several dozen flavors. Rice Krispie Treat flavored marshmallow. Jelly beans? Ugh. I'm not a fan of jelly beans to begin with. At least, not normal jelly beans. I like the flavor of jelly beans, but they're super, super sugary and honestly quite unhealthy. So I can't have a whole lot. But a marshmallow that is flavored like that? Oh. And they're not even good marshmallows to begin with. I mean, that's the real catcher. They're nasty marshmallows. I like a good marshmallow, okay? Marshmallows can be very tasty. But Peeps are not on that list. 15 flavors in some variety of shapes. Wow, only 15. That's way less than I thought there would be. I know, like, for ice cream, there's, like, hundreds of flavors of ice cream out there. And people are coming up with new ones all the time. Apparently, the Peeps industry has not quite experienced that. Three different types of chocolate tip ones. There's Dr. Pepper. Now, I like the flavor of Dr. Pepper. I will not lie on that one. But I do not want to have a marshmallow that is flavored like that. Oh, my. churro, chocolate pudding, ice blue raspberry, and the count is just the Easter category. There's also Halloween and Christmas. Well, you know, I would be curious to find out who is a big fan of the Peeps, and that way we can get an expert to sample them and tell us what the best one is. Because if I tasted them all, I would say blah, negative, loser vote for every last one of them. I am almost certain. I say almost certain because I realize, you know, there's going to be some exceptions out there. There are some types, like I hate beans. Always have. But there is a very, very small number, like 3 types that I actually enjoy. But I don't know what they're called, and I don't even know how to find them again, because there's so much variety out there. So... But even so, it's something I'm not a fan of. I suddenly found that there's actually a very, very small handful that I actually enjoy. I think we'll keep the... I kind of want to keep the U. I feel like the S needs to be different here. Four items in Halloween and 6 in Christmas. Christmas has gingerbread flavor and flavored and shaped ones. Well, they're making it for somebody. Somebody's eating these things. But darned if I know who it is. It's kind of like candy corn, which, by the way, didn't you know candy corn is one of the very first types of modern candy ever? I was surprised by that. It was revolutionary back in the 1800s. And they were making candy corn with all the colors and whatnot. Who would have known? It is hundreds of years old, and people are still eating it. And people are not fans of it. But back in the day, it was something. People actually enjoyed it. But that's because there wasn't a whole lot of competition. We're not going to be going on much longer for tonight. I need to end it earlier. But I wanted to try and make sure things were going well for the streaming side anyway, just because I wanted to make sure all the bugs were kind of worked out And it seems like some of the problems have been resolved. Not all of them, though. Once I finish up this S, then we'll probably finish out there. Because there's not a whole lot on the rateable sides, we won't do that. But one thing to just remember as we... there are people in our country that are so blinded by TikTok right now. I fully expect there are going to be people losing their collective minds for months. If they do not understand, and you're trying to convey to them, there is a reason for this, and they are like, it makes no sense. Point them to the China show. It is so helpful to understand what's going on. Now, they're not necessarily the best at formatting their presentations, but they have incredible sources. And they are very good at helping you to understand complex issues of a geopolitical nature. But know this, the experts are waiting to basically tell people all the reasons why it's bad. If they are interested and want to hear my take on it, well, you know where to send them. But I know not a whole lot of people are going to be too interested in that. But I'm somebody that will definitely be able to sit down with somebody and be able to convey this is why it is. And actually, that's been a role I've had to do in the past a couple of times, where nobody had time to sit down and help people understand, so it actually fell to me to sit down and have to help some folks. Ironically enough, now I rant into the void, you could say, kind of doing the same sort of thing, of where I'm taking some time to logically try and pace something out. Whether or not it actually impacts anything, I have no idea. But I do know that there are a lot of people that are going to be suffering through this time. Some people that I was a little surprised are actually trapped in the TikTok sphere. And I do believe that we're going to see a lot of people being freaked out at the idea of having to work for a living rather than have a TikTok sort of lifestyle. If you know people that are Instagrammers and TikTokers or whatnot that are like making all their money off of it, that industry is going to crash very soon. I think it already is crashing. You all know that I've ranted about this sort of stuff before. I do believe the influencer age is coming to an end. The age of AI is now upon us. And influencers are going to perish, so to speak, on this road of AI takeover. It's already begun. I remember early on seeing some people saying, "Oh, I'm going to sample all the hamburgers here at Burger King, and I'm going to tell you the best one." And they made entire channels off of that, sampling the same old burgers over and over. And I kept thinking, who is watching this? Oh, we're going to try McDonald's fries for like the 50th time. Just the perfect amount of salt. You need a whole channel for that? Sense the sarcasm? You know, when I was in Florida, working for the YouTubers, I had to, well, everybody was out filming videos at the amusement parks. And I told the leadership team that, hey, you wanted me to help make one of these videos at the parks. Let's go out and do it. Because I had all sorts of ideas, of which none of them, only one of them got to be made, which is ridiculous. We went down there to make like 3-4 videos, and we only got to make one. And it was pulled offline because of reasons. Not because of problems, but because the crew was like messed up. But instead of getting to go to the parks for that, I had to spend hours filming someone eating chicken nuggets. It was humiliating. It was the dumbest video I think I've ever filmed. No, it is. It is without a shadow of a doubt the dumbest video I have ever filmed. Here we were trying to figure out the best lighting for a cheap garbage camera. And they're like, we're going to try and put this on all these platforms because everyone's doing sampling chicken nuggets. And the person who was eating the chicken nuggets hated it. Well, not hated it, but was not a fan of it. And you could tell she couldn't stomach it. After like 3 or 4, she's like, I'm done. And she was bragging how she could eat all of them. It's like, you're not even eating half of them. You're not even eating a full box. And so we spent all that money to film her with a mountain of chicken nuggets that nobody cared about. Because they were trying to draw out simps. That is why they wanted it. They didn't care about the chicken nuggets. They didn't care about the opinion. Oh, this chicken nugget's so spongy. You know, I wonder how they make it. And actually, we're going to tell you about how they make it so you can make an informed decision about buying your chicken nuggets. No, nothing like that. It was all about, oh, chicken nuggets, I'm going to put in the dipping sauce. Chicken nuggets, oh, it makes me want to give it some to my stuffed bear. Hey, stuffed bear, what do you think about the chicken nuggets? And I was over there thinking, I flew across the entire country to film a pampered child eating chicken nuggets. While a grown man organizes the whole thing designed to humiliate her and humiliate everyone else involved. All for this belief that somehow a trend is worth pursuing. When you guys eventually do see the content I have been making, I want it to floor you. I want it to be so good that you're like, wow, either how did it get made or I'm inspired. The Lego ones do not count. Okay, that is like the preliminary stuff. I got a story. Well, I got many stories, but I got some stories I want you basically to be weeping to because it is that impactful. I'm spending all my effort to try and make sure it gets to that point because I want it to matter, to be valuable. But you know what? When you are being an Instagram creator, you're not creating. you are consuming. Like how she was consuming all those chicken nuggets. I say all because there's just like 4, 6, and she got terrible lack of appetite afterwards. I wonder why. But you are the consumer. You're getting a chance to be a part of a trend, meaning you get a chance to spend your money to promote another person's brand. That is consuming. You're not influencing. You're showing you're a shill. That's why, even though I've been given all these offers to do advertisements for these companies, which by the way wouldn't actually generate any sort of revenue. I believe the amount I would actually make would probably be like $5. I really do think that. But I could be doing it. I could be doing ad reads right now. I've received enough of those things where I'm like, yep, it's something that could be done. But I will not do that because they are things that would require me, like TikTok does to people, to become a shill. And that doesn't have wisdom. That doesn't have honor. That doesn't have respect. So when I see people complaining, don't take away my TikTok, I can't live without it. Yes, you can. And I wish it would have been taken away sooner. But if you are going to beg and say, I'm going to go to Red Note to try and stick it to the man for doing this, you don't understand because you are a child. And you're foolish, honestly. Because there are people dying because of that app. And you're more concerned about your clicks and your likes. I know probably about 10 people whose lives are going to be upended because of TikTok's ban. I welcome it. Because they should not be on TikTok. And they should not be making an industry out of it. Sorry, I've gotten a bit irritated about this, but this is something that sickens me. It sickens me because I see people destroying their lives. And as a result, destroying the lives of those around them. Their family, their friends, themselves. Do not be famous. And do not try and pursue the glamorous life of an influencer. It only ends in ruin because it requires you to maintain a sense of childhoodness when you should be an adult, when you should be wise, improving, become a leader, become a caretaker, become someone who's changing your world and changing the world for others, making that difference. But if you can't do that, then what are you doing? You're living for yourself. And living for yourself never ends well. To all the people on these platforms that are like trying desperately to get likes and views, this is an opportunity. Do not think that you playing a game online to become a pro so people will watch, don't think that that somehow is going to change the world. Could it? Yes. PewDiePie showed us that. But you know why PewDiePie succeeded? Because he was genuine. And he carried on conversations. And he offered something more than just playing a game. If you're playing a game and trying to trash talk somebody, well, that's not going to end up very well either. Wisdom comes with effort that you put into it. It comes from learning the hard way about the consequences of your actions. The time that I spent with the YouTubers is a big reason why when I heard about the TikTok ban, I rejoiced. Because I saw what it was like when people became so obsessed with themselves that they are willing to break rules and get it to the point where cops had to be called on them. Yes, we had cops get called on us. And the only person who could walk away from that area without immediately, even walk back to the area without immediately being harassed and being told to leave again, the only person out of that crew, me. Not because I'm somehow that much better. It was because I understood how to carry myself with respect in an area where the moment that people are like pulling out their phones, I got to get this recorded, I just stood by and watched. And was I viewed as part of it? Yes. But you know what? They did not run me off. They ran the others off. They knew I was with them. And they ran off the others. And I got to walk off on my own terms. And then the leader's like, how did you get away? And it's like, well, first off, I wasn't a jerk. Okay, I didn't say that. But in my mind, I'm thinking, well, that was a pretty darn easy way to get off. You just don't treat the people of authority with disrespect. That was one of the big reasons why I eventually had to leave, because I realized, what? All the things I was promised with this group is not there. You're so focused on fame, like TikTokers, so focused on fame, you're willing to do what is wrong, to harass people when they say don't, and to be all upset that someone told you no. And you know who they kept quoting all the time? Conservative talk show people. People that I listen to all the time. And they're like, hey, you know what? Don't let these folks bully you around. Know your rights, blah, blah, blah. And then I saw as they turned around and abused those rights willingly, saying, I don't care about what's right or wrong. I just care about my clicks. What about the person you're harassing? Do you think they get a right when you shove a camera in their face? Do they get the right to take the footage from you the same way you took footage of them? Problems don't happen unless you're reported. Honestly, in our country, usually happens with a report. And they will not go after people who are sensible and who are gracious. Rarely will they go after somebody who is sensible and gracious. I think we have a lot to learn about being civil. Yeah, there's a reason why I always end off our streams by saying be civil to one another. Because in the end, civility is what we are in desperate need of in our culture. Desperate need of it. Not just because of how companies are behaving, but because how we are behaving. Civility. I do believe that we are at the tail end, though, of all this madness of influencers, because AI will remove it. But you know the one thing that AI cannot do? The one thing that influencers have refused to do? And I do mean refused to do. Be a friend. To be honorable and kind. An AI cannot behave well unless it's programmed, and even so, it's going to have restrictions. Either technologically or because it was programmed that way. I will not I will not allow for the mentality of an influencer to overtake me. And believe me, I've had those opportunities. I will not do it because in the end, it is such a downward spiral. And you will not be happy with it when you go down its path. But all these people, they think somehow, if they just get in on the craze this time, maybe, just maybe there will be a chance that they will, they'll be able to make the money to justify it. Money. People are so desperate for it. And understandably so. Okay, the world functions with money. Well, actually it functions with work, but people think that it functions with money. Money makes the world go round. Well, again, it's more like manual labor makes the world go round. Money is just a representation of where you stand on that totem pole. You don't need money for food if you grow the food. You don't need money for a house if you build the house. But an influencer only sees money. They don't see people. They don't see labor. They don't see consequences. They don't see right and wrong. To them, the world's only one thing: fame and money. So two things: fame and money. There was a person who I talked with not too terribly long ago who mentioned about some of these people harassing him. And, you know, it's not the first time I've heard that. I've actually heard it a couple of times. People who finally arrive, who didn't want to be famous, who suddenly find themselves being famous. And they're like, I don't want people to treat me as like an opportunity. I want them to treat me nicely, like I'm a human being. And instead I'm being treated like I'm somehow a dispenser of wealth and money and fame. Only for people to get disappointed when they find out, you know what, I don't get anything out of this person. And then they try and find the next person. And they try that whole process again. starting to ramble too much, so I probably should bring it to an end there. So my apologies. I got on to my rant. I went on for 20 minutes ranting about that tangent. Let me just put it this way. I do not think ill of people for wanting to become famous. I blame people who become famous and use it for evil or use it for themselves. And TikTok is an example of people that become famous for evil reasons. I know somebody who got 15 million views for their dog. That person received a fair chunk of money. They started an entire channel about their dog. And you know what? It didn't quite take off the way they wanted, but they were still making money off of it. I don't think that person was malicious. I mean, maybe a little careless, but not malicious. But I do know people that try and use it in bad ways. Those ones I do take great issue with, because they're trying to make a living being either a temptation or a shill or a propagandist. Yeah, we have a lot of propagandists here in this country. What we need is people to be genuine, kind, merciful, wise, moral, righteous. Those things will change our country, and those things will fulfill your deepest longings way better than anything fame can give you. On that note, folks, I will leave you for tonight. Thank you for listening to my nonsense and my rants. Have a blessed evening and morning, everybody. Just a reminder, regardless of what happens with this TikTok ban, or with the people who are, or the people who are the influencers, regardless of what happens, be civil to one another. And we'll see you next time. We'll be back tomorrow for Daramuth, and I'll share that link later on for those that have an interest in it. Otherwise, I will probably see you all tomorrow evening. Until then, folks, see you later.